Every rabbi wants to be like Rabbi Ellenson. That's our dream. Actually, I accomplished it tonight. Next to both of our names is the word emeritus. That's all the similarity. It is such an honor, Rabbi Ellenson, to introduce you to this holy community. Rabbi Ellenson is the Chancellor Emeritus of the and Professor of Jewish Religious Thoughts in New York. Lives in New York and Boston. Rabbi Ellenson is internationally recognized for all his publications and research. He has been the president of the seminary, to my disappointment after I was ordained, but I was ordained. That was an achievement. From 2001 to 2013, and in 2014, he retired and became an emeritus. David possessed this amazing warmth and humility and intellect. Actually, he has been here before with definitely the help from the Armin Zweibeck wonderful fund that helped bring scholars to this place. David, this is his 4th visit. Now, how many congregations have you been 4 times? My own. His own. But I remember every time that he came here and opened himself and his amazing knowledge to all of us, there was always a demand to bring you back and bring you back. And what a wonderful evening tonight to combine your coming back with the installation of Rabbi Stoller. One of the most intriguing things about David is that he actually saved the college. Maybe you don't know that. But there was a time in 2008 where the college had a huge deficit that they even entertained closing one of the campuses. And I remember writing a very passionate letter to you, David, asking you not to close the Cincinnati campus. Every rabbi, depends where he was ordained, wrote a letter to David not to close his campus or her campus. And actually, David was capable of keeping all of the campuses, including the one in Israel, open. I think David should be nominated to be the budget of the new government because there was no endowment really to speak of. David raised, over those years, 13 years, he raised $250 million for the college so we can keep our teachers and our doors open. He also established an endowment of $200 million. This is not to tell you to stop contributing. This is just to tell you what he did. Let me share with you what chairs he established during his presidency. And when I'm saying chair, endowed chair, is not those chairs that we have in our kitchen. Those are chairs like the following: a chair in liturgy, worship, and spirituality, a chair for an emerging scholar, a chair for Jewish religious thought, a chair for social responsibility, a chair for emerging scholar in Jewish intellectual history, a chair of rabbinic embracing innovation and change, and one that he did also, the chair of Debbie Friedman. May her memory be a blessing. Let me share with you some of the scholarship that David acquired and also some of the books. Let me start with the publications because some of us read his publications more often than the Bible because there's sometimes in some chapters more wisdom than the Bible. He wrote a book, Tradition in Transition, Orthodoxy, Halacha, and Boundaries of Modern Jewish History. The book about Israel Hildesheimer and the creation of the modern Jewish Orthodoxy. Jewish Orthodoxy didn't start with Moses. Okay? It was a joke. Between tradition and culture, the dialectics of Jewish religion and identity in the modern world. After emancipation, Jewish religious responses to modernity. Pledges of Jewish allegiance, conversion, law, and policy making in the 19th and 20th century. And his recent book, the newest book, is Jewish Meaning in a World of Choice. And it was published, by the way, not far away from here, the Nebraska publication. JPS, the Jewish Publication Society, was bought by the UNL. And so it's here. All the Jewish wisdom for the rest of the world is coming from Lincoln, Nebraska. Rabbi Ellenson he received his PhD in Columbia University in 1981 and was ordained as a rabbi in 1977 in the Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion. He then got a degree at the University of Virginia, received another degree from the College of William and Mary in Virginia. You have to have those credentials, that College of Mary and William. He's directing now, or post-director of the Jerome Lackheim School of Judaic Studies at the Hebrew Union College, and he was also at the campus of Jack H. Skirball in Los Angeles. And there's Rafi. I had the privilege of serving in summer camp with his son. Actually, I was in the summer when your son came, and it was a rough adjustment, and some of us helped him, and he never left camp. Amazing musicians. What is there else to say about Rabbi Ellenson? Those moments in the seminary when he came to visit, or the moments at the CCAR conventions, when Rabbi Ellenson speaks, everyone is in the room because there's so much wisdom to gain, so much intricacy to understand the relationship between the different movements. He has worked all his life to try to bridge the gap between the movements, between the Jewish denominations. So it is to the last book that Rabbi Stoller asked me to address a few words. They are very confusing times, I think, for Jewish communities all over the United States and in Israel. And there is a wisdom in the final book that David wrote, and there will be more books, I'm sure, a wisdom about what do we do about being in post-denominational Judaism, where it's so easy to cross from movement to movement. It's so confusing when so many individuals who are being surveyed in different Pew's surveys are basically saying that they are not religious, but they feel Jewish, when there is an interfaith marriages taking place in our community. What is happening to Jews? What will be the future which this congregation will experience? Well, I don't need to worry about this. Rabbi Stoller is worrying about this. And from the few months of getting to know you, wow, this place is in absolutely wonderful hands. I want also to acknowledge all the faces from my past and my wife's past from BJBE. Maybe you don't know what the abbreviation is all about. It's Bnei Joshua Beth Elohim. This is where Rabbi Stoller came from. And this is the place where Elise and I were hired many years ago as youth directors. And I see people that I still recall and still remember. And I have to tell you, this has been an amazing training ground for Rabbi Stoller and for the family to be able to be there and come here So I sleep at night. I'm not worried about post-denominational. He will take care of this. So it is with great pleasure and honor, Rabbi Ellinson, that I invite you to the Bima.
Shabbat Shalom. The only problem with that introduction, and I mean the only problem, is that now that I'm about to speak, it can only go downhill from here. Let me begin by saying a few words before I start to speak. Well, that's akin to the old joke, what does it mean when a rabbi places their watch on the lectern? Nothing. The rabbi mentioning the story about my son Rafi, when we have 5 children, he's our youngest, and he ended up going to camp at Osrui in Wisconsin, though we were at the time living in New York, because there was a young girl at 9 that he was friendly with who was going to Osrui he had met in Israel. So one night he came to my wife Jackie and me and said, can I go to camp in Wisconsin? Because this young girl, Ilana, was going there, and we had no real objection to it. We couldn't figure out what the problem was, so he started. The first 2 days, as Rabbi Azriel mentioned, he had a very, very hard time. I'm sure, Rabbi Stoller, none of your children ever experienced this because of how wonderful I am sure Karen is in making sure that they are always secure at every moment. With our youngest child, he was having a horrible, horrible first 2 days, and he went to the camp director and on his hands and knees was begging to be returned home. So they made an agreement. Jerry Kay, the director of the camp, said, just stay through Shabbat. This was like a Wednesday. And if on Sunday you still want to leave, we will have your parents come and take you home. Well, by the time Shabbat came, Jerry Kay told me the story later, and Rabbi Azriel played a very big role in this, that my son Rafi, at 9 years of age, came up to Jerry Kay in the Chadar Ochel, the dining room, and said, you know how I behaved those first 2 days? And Jerry said, yes, I remember. He said, I think the time has come. We should just let bygones be bygones. And it's been now 14 or 15 years, and he was the Rosh Hashanah, but it was quite a start. It is really a great, great pleasure for me to be in Omaha again. The Zweibach family, okay. I don't know if it can stay up. Okay, that better? Okay. I've been so close to the Zweibach family for so many years. Their son Josh was my student and my friend at Hebrew Union College so many years ago, and it is really a great pleasure. This is actually, as the rabbi said, my 4th visit here. The first time I came, Rabbi Brooks was still the rabbi. I was at that point a rather young professor at the Hebrew Union College, and I remember I spoke on Abraham Joshua Heschel, who had been a teacher of Rabbi Brooks at the Hebrew Union College prior to back in the 1940s. I came a couple of times while Aryeh was here, and when my student, about whom I'll speak in a few moments, Brian, asked me to come here tonight, I was very, very honored and very anxious to be here. I'll also say, Monica, you undoubtedly played a role. I come here when her family has a simcha. You should just be aware of that. The last time I was here, it was an adult B'nai Mitzvah ceremony, And what I remember the most, I'll say to the bar mitzvah boy about your grandmother, her shoes tonight, and you can all take a look at these later, are really quite outstanding and stylish. But I think on that occasion, if I remember correctly, I said, I don't know if I'll remember everyone in Omaha from that visit, but you wore the brightest yellow shoes I think I had ever seen on a red carpet. And I said, I won't ever forget those shoes on that carpet. So I can't say that I remember every detail of the bar bat mitzvah, the b'nai mitzvah that were observed that night, but it was a memorable occasion, and I'm glad to be at this simcha with you today as well. And now let me really get to the major point of why I am here tonight. It is always a great, great celebration when a congregation, a community welcomes a new Rav. We in Jewish tradition believe in the notion of Shalshelet Kabbalah, a chain of tradition. Pirkei Avot, the teachings of our ancestors, begins with a genealogy of rabbinic transmission from one generation to the next generation. There was a time when I used to find that genealogy somewhat uninteresting. But as I've thought about it over the years, it is really a tribute, that genealogy, which goes from generation to generation, of all the people who made it possible for Judaism to persist from generation to generation, and that each person, in what I think of as a chain novel, is responsible for writing the next chapter. You, Rabbi Stoller, stand on the shoulders, the immediate shoulders, of Rabbi Azriel and Rabbi Brooks. They have created a community here in Omaha that is known throughout the United States, and certainly the events of the last decade, where you have created this interfaith triangle here in Omaha, has captured the attention and serves as a model for every community in North America. Indeed, in this particular age, the community that you are about to lead, this community becomes even more important as a model. And it will be wonderful to see what you, Brian, what you, Rabbi Stoller, will do as you take this congregation on, standing on the shoulders of your predecessors, to build and establish this community and to make it stronger as you move now further into the 21st century, or we could say the 6th millennium if we count by the Jewish calendar. When a community adopts a rabbi, there are three major qualities that are most significant. One quality is that a rabbi has to be a marbitz Torah, a teacher of Torah. The whole tradition depends upon this transmission of Torah from one generation to the other. Students often, through transference, love their teachers. But teachers also love their students, because without their students, the values, the permanent and eternal values, and how they'll come to be expressed meaningfully in another generation would mean virtually nothing. I first met Rabbi Stoller when he came after having served in the realm of politics as a press agent, not a press agent, as it were, a kind of chief of staff. Whenever I see Sarah Huckabee, I often think, well, what would it be if Brian Stoller were up there today? Although I don't think this president would have appointed you. That's just my own suspicion. But that you come to be the individual who will be a spreader of Torah. When you first began at the college, you were eager, you were anxious to learn. And over your 5 years after Jerusalem and the Cincinnati campus, the outstanding kind of commitment you had to Torah was obvious to all of us who were at the College Institute. I remember standing with you almost a decade ago now, where I had the distinct kavod and honor, lasmichotcha Rabbi Yisrael, to place my hands upon you, to give you a little kiss on your kepi, and to proclaim on the basis of your studies and your character that you would now be a rabbi among the people Israel. And during these past decade, the studies in which you have engaged, your work for your doctorate, but the commitment you have to study as a masmid, as a person who looks at text every single day of his life, has been inspiring to me and frankly makes you a model for what it is we hope for at the Hebrew Union College when we educate persons as rabbis among the people Israel. Your congregation and this community in Omaha will be blessed by the teachings that Rabbi Stoller will bring to you. He is a person of rare depth in terms of his knowledge of Jewish law and his interest in Jewish law. And I have little doubt that he will take that knowledge and transform it in a way that will make this community stronger, deeper, richer, and more authentic Jewishly, even as you confront what are the unique problems facing any community, Jewish community in North America today. But to be a Marbitz Torah, to be a teacher of Torah, is only one of the requirements for what it means to be a Rav B'Yisrael, a rabbi among the Jewish people, a person who will head a community. A rabbi has to also be a chacham. A rabbi has to have, as my father would have put it, tachas, but another way to put it would be seichel. A rabbi needs learning, but the question is, how is it that you take that learning in a given kind of situation and apply it? I think anyone who goes to any professional school, medical, business school, law school, there's so many things that your teachers can instruct you in. But in the end, the ability to know the hearts of the people whom you serve, the community which you wish to forge, all of that requires a degree of wisdom on the individual's part. And in the decades since you've been ordained, your work in the Chicago area, in the Central Conference of American Rabbis, the love that so many of your congregants from Chicago have for you is all a reflection of the kind of wisdom that you have and the wisdom that you bring to this community. And finally, a rabbi has to be, and this is a title in the Sephardic community that is used, a rabbi has to be a chaver. A rabbi has to be a chaver, chaverah, a friend. A rabbi has to have empathy for the people that the rabbi serves. Their love for the people and the state of Israel, even when they are critical, has to be boundless. It has to be infinite. And the rabbi has to have the ability to be able to look into the hearts of the people whom he serves, to understand their tzoros, their distress, but also be able to celebrate with them at smachot, to feel their simchas. The job of a rabbi, on a given day, a rabbi can go from a bris to a funeral, to teaching children or adults in the afternoon, and all of that goes on the same day with virtually no time for transition and private moments of conversation with people. So a rabbi has to be a Marbitz Torah, a teacher of Torah, has to be a chacham or a chochama. I want to be egalitarian here. Has to have wisdom. And a rabbi in the end has to have empathy, has to be a chaver. Your rabbi, Rabbi Stoller, possesses all of these qualities. And hence, I have to say, Brian, one way in which I will not do exactly what you asked me to do tonight, as I've thought more about it, is I will not tonight give, as it were, a kind of academic analysis of the state of the North American Jewish community and what actually needs to be done in an analytical kind of sense to build community. But I hope you'll forgive me a bit, because I would like to tell you and share a story with your congregation and give, as it were, a kind of homiletical way of approaching what I think this congregation needs to do and what every congregation needs to do, because it will be built upon the past of our people. But the way in which this past will find expression in its values will depend completely upon the direction that Rabbi Stoller will bring you and how you will internalize those directions as you create a Kehillah Kadosha, a holy community, at this temple and in this community in the years ahead. So what I would like to say is that your congregation, I am certain, for whom you now are their rabbi, you will ultimately become their chaver, you will become their friend. As Pirkei Avot says, Aseh lecha rav uknei lecha chaver, make for yourself a rabbi and acquire for yourself a friend. And all of this, by the way, in it, your relationship with Karen will be of even greater value and import as the two of you together create the nature of what this community will be. When I was a boy, I grew up in an Orthodox shul, in a community that was both similar to and somewhat distinct from Omaha. I grew up in Newport News, Virginia. Omaha is a much larger Jewish community than the one I grew up in. There were maybe 700 Jewish families, 4 synagogues. Knowing what I now know about Jewish life, with 700 Jewish families, I'm surprised there weren't 702 congregations. But we belonged, my family, to an Orthodox shul, and here's the story that I would share with you, and the lesson that I would like to convey to your congregation on this night when they celebrate you and look forward to your bringing all the qualities that you have as you come to lead this community. The ceremony that impressed me the most as a child was a ceremony called Duchenin. How many of you have seen Duchenin in a congregation? So Duchen, this is the Duchan. It's the, what do we call it? The bima, the platform?
Those are good names.
Good names, the bima, the platform. On the holidays, Kohanim, men of priestly descent, come up and they recite a blessing over the congregation. It is a very powerful moment. The Shaliach Tzibur, where's the cantor? I'm looking for her right now. There you go. The cantor, the Shaliach Tzibur, will call out, Kohanim, priests. And then the Kohanim, the priest, will answer, Am Kadoshecha Ka'amur. This, by the way, is the dream of every rabbi, to be a cantor, at least for a moment. Cantors want to give sermons, rabbis want to sing. And then they will recite the blessing, praise to you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, Asher Kiddushanu B'Kedushato Shel Aharon, who has made us holy with the holiness of Aaron, V'tzivan Lavarech et Amo Yisrael Be'ahava. I'll stop after this. And commands us to bless the people Israel with love. The Kohen cannot bless the people if the Kohen does not love them. And as we all know, it is much easier to love people than to love individuals. Or, as my wife often puts it, the only problem with a relationship is it does involve other people. And it's hard to get along even with yourself. And then the words are recited, I don't get to say this word a lot, antiphonally. I like the word antiphonal. It's a word that you may get on your college boards one day. It just means responsively, but if you're an academic, you don't say responsively, you say antiphonally. And the Yivarechecha, may God bless you, and the Kohanim will answer. And at the end of each part of the priestly blessing, V'yishmerecha, and then the Kohanim will chant for what seems like forever. And then they'll finally go, V'yishmerecha. So here's the point, may God keep you. You are not allowed to look when this ceremony takes place. As my father put it, if you look, God's Shekhinah, the divine presence of God, comes into the synagogue. And when I was an 8 or 9-year-old boy, my father said to me, if you look, you will be blinded, because you can't look upon God. And he told me that if you look a second time, you actually will die. And I can remember being 8 or 9 and turning to him and saying, I don't actually understand. If I look the first time and I'm blinded, how could I look the second time? That is, by the way, when I knew I was destined to become a Reform and not an Orthodox rabbi. So I once shared this story with a rabbi you know very well, Levi Kelman, who was the rabbi of Kol HaNeshama in Jerusalem. Levi grew up in a family in New York City. His father was head of the conservative rabbinate, Rabbi Wolf Kelman. And Levi said that his father told him precisely the same thing. You are not allowed to look. So when Levi was a young boy in the synagogue that he attended with his father, of course he did look. And he came to his father after his father said, you told me that God came into the synagogue and I wouldn't be able to see because of the brilliance of the Shekhinah, of God's indwelling presence. But he said, all I see are, and he named the men who were in the congregation who were reciting the blessing. And so then Levi said to his father, where is God? And unlike my father, who when I looked the second time just said, turn around, gave me a little potch, which I suspect most parents would do. He said, that's a great question, Levi, but he had an advantage, Rabbi Kelman Sr., because a man named Abraham Joshua Heschel davened in his congregation. He said, that's a great question, Levi. Where is God? Ask Rabbi Heschel. So we have a lot of rabbis. If you have any questions, ask your rabbis here tonight. So Levi went to Rabbi Heschel. Now, Rabbi Heschel was a great student of Jewish mysticism, and this is what he believed. You all know that in the theory of Kabbalah, Lurianic Kabbalah, God creates the world through an act of tzimtzum. God literally contracts unto himself. He places the divinity of God into 10 vessels. The vessels burst, and with the bursting of the vessels, the world comes into creation. In Kabbalistic theory, the world comes about because of an apocalyptic moment. There is, as it were, the Big Bang theory of Lurianic Kabbalah. For the Kabbalists, then, it means that why is the world not perfect and why is tikkun, why is repair needed? Because the world is no longer fully, completely populated by God. There are places that are devoid of God, but simultaneously, there are sparks, nitzitzot of God, that are everywhere in the universe. And according to the Kabbalists, tikkun olam doesn't just mean social justice. Tikkun olam means literally repair of the cosmos. The task of Jews is to repair the cosmos. It is to engage in tikkun olam, so that when Levi asked Rabbi Heschel, where is God? Rabbi Heschel said the following to him, Levi, if what you want to do is see God, you have to look beyond your partsuf. You have to look beyond your own face in the mirror. And if you look deep within yourself, you'll see that there's a spark in the tzotz of God who dwells within you. And you look at your father and your mother and your sisters, and when you leave the synagogue and walk along Broadway in Manhattan, look at the people whom you meet. And in every single one of them, there is a nitzotz, there is a spark of holiness. The problem, he said, Levi, is most people forget that it's there. They forget that there is this spark of God that dwells within them. And your task, Levi, is through the performance of mitzvot, through the establishment of a community. Your task is to take those nitzotzot, those sparks of divinity and of God that are everywhere in the world in a scattered form, and to take those sparks that are hidden and to make them revealed. What is it that your congregation should do, Brian? Your task as the rabbi of this community, building on the legacy that you have inherited from your kodmim, from your predecessors, is to take those sparks of holiness and make them appear in the world. Instead of worrying constantly about boundaries, worry about meaning. If your community is a joyful place, if your community is one where sparks are apparent, where you see the holiness in the people who walk through these doors and the holiness of the people beyond these doors, your task is to take those sparks that are hidden and to make them revealed in the world. Rabbi Azriel said a moment ago he was not worried about the future of this community. I am not worried about it either. I know how capable you are. But in addition to knowing how capable you are, I urge you to work with the people in this community to inspire them and to have them work in a way that this community becomes a genuine Kehillah Kadoshah in a stronger way than it was before, a holy community even stronger than it has been. Because the task of the Jewish people remains today what it was and what it will be in the future, even as the precise methods and strategies to have that meaning expressed in a 21st century world may be different. The task is to take those sparks that are hidden and to make God and God's presence revealed in the world. That is my prayer for you on this occasion. It is my prayer for your community. In the tradition, there is a prayer that says, or that ends with the words, V'yishlach baracha v'hatzlacha b'chol ma'aseh yedehem. To you, Brian, I would say this community, with your rabbi, your cantor, your wife, and with all the people who are here, your president, I wish only blessing and success on all the work of your hands. I do not know precisely what all your strategies and techniques will be as you move into the 21st century and as you begin to lead this community. But knowing you and the kindness, the good heart that you possess, in addition to your intellect, I have no doubt that you will inspire these people and guide them and lead them in a way that this community will become even stronger in newer ways, in original ways than it has been up to now. Moses said to Joshua, Chazak ve'ematz, be strong and of good courage. I say these words to you today. In our tradition, Moses, like you, is a rabbi. And what was the great, great wisdom of Moses and his ability? Vaydaber Moshe el bnei Yisrael vayisa'u, which I would translate as, when Moses, our rabbi, spoke to the Jewish people, out of his heart, out of his wisdom, and out of his knowledge, vayisa'u, they were moved. I call you up now to address your community as you begin to move them in the days, weeks, months, and years ahead. May God bless you always.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. As you walk into the sanctuary of this synagogue, there's an inscription above the doors, which say in Hebrew, Da lifnei mi ata omed, which means, know before whom you stand. It's a message of humility. It means we need to be conscious always that wherever we are, we stand in the presence of God. And we stand in the presence of God now and every day and every moment for a purpose: to make a positive impact on the world and on other people, to be holy. Da lifnei mi ata omed. Tonight especially, I am very mindful of who it is before I stand. And I'm endlessly grateful for the opportunity God has given me to be your rabbi. I also know that I stand before others without who I would not be here, and we would not be here. I stand before my parents, Joe and Jeannie Stoller, who gave me life and taught me to be the human being that I am today. I stand before my family, my brother and sister-in-law, my mother-in-law, Joanne, my aunts and uncles and cousins who are here, who have nourished me and supported me throughout my life. I stand before my wife, Karen, and my children, Lindsay and Zachary, who walk the path of life with me and love me unconditionally, who have given me the opportunity to be a husband and a father and to realize my purpose in life. I hope I make them as proud as they make me. I stand before dear friends from my former congregation in Deerfield, Illinois, who studied with me and prayed with me and did tikkun olam with me and taught me what it means to be a rabbi. I stand before my clergy partners, my professional team, and our lay leadership, with whom I am so excited to work at growing and deepening this holy community. And I stand here before my clergy partners in the Tri-Faith Initiative, who are courageous and innovative, and who I am convinced will change the world. I stand here also before my teacher, Rabbi David Ellenson, whom I admire for so many reasons. Rabbi Ellenson is a world-renowned scholar, a brilliant teacher, a leader of the Jewish people, and one of our most brightly shining lights. It's rare that any HUC student, let alone a full-time congregational rabbi, has the opportunity to study one-on-one with David Ellenson, something that I have been privileged to do over the last several years as his doctoral student. And it is a highlight of my career and of my life. Another teacher of mine once said to me, when David Ellenson opens his mouth, words of Torah just fall out. The Torah is not only something that lives in David's mind, it lives in his heart and in his soul. It is the essence of his humanity. The rabbinical smicha, the diploma on every rabbi's wall, says in Hebrew, Yoreh, Yoreh, which means, let him teach, let him teach. One rabbi has said that this repetition of the phrase might be interpreted to mean, Yoreh, let him teach with his lips, and Yoreh, let him teach with his life. When you are in the presence of David Ellenson, you cannot help but be moved and inspired and changed by the Torah that he speaks and the Torah that he lives. He is a mensch of the highest order. To me, he is the embodiment of Torah. and Rabbi Ellenson, I am beyond honored to stand here on this bema before you tonight. I also stand here tonight, tomorrow, and God willing for many years to come, before our beloved Rabbi Emeritus Aryeh Azriel. Rabbi Azriel is a legend and a role model for so many in Reform Judaism today. His characteristic warmth and friendliness, his passion for making the world a better place, his courage in standing tall and strong for what he believes in, his ability to bring people together through the power of his personality and the force of his ideas, and his capacity to see beyond the way things are and envision the way things ought to be, are inspirational to so many, including me. Rabbi, these qualities are indelibly imprinted in the DNA of this congregation. This community is your legacy, and I feel a sacred responsibility to carry it forward in ways that will do honor to all that you achieved and all that you envision. I am grateful for the friendship we are building and for your mentorship and your wise counsel. It's said that we in any given generation are like dwarves standing on the shoulders of giants. It's only because of those who came before us that we can see where we have been and where we want to go. Rabbi Azriel, you are truly a giant, and I am but a dwarf standing on your shoulders. I am grateful that I can rely on you to hold me up and to give me perspective and to help me see the way ahead. Finally, I stand tonight before all of you, the congregation of Temple Israel. I'm honored and humbled that you chose me to be your rabbi, and I'm so excited for all that we're going to do together and how we're going to grow together in the years ahead. Over the last several months, I've begun to get to know many of you, and I'm grateful for the relationships that we're building. I'm grateful for the warm way you have welcomed my family into the community, and for your energy and enthusiasm for starting this next stage of the journey together. I know before whom I stand, but I want to know more. I want to know what inspires you, what you're passionate about, and what makes you think. I want to know what troubles you and what brings you joy, and who you are in the core of your being, and what sparks your Jewish soul. See, I believe every person has that spark inside them, like Rabbi Ellenson said, that spark of God, waiting to be ignited by some meaningful engagement with the brilliance of Jewish tradition and holy Jewish community. I believe each one of us has our own portal. My friends from BJBE know what I mean when I say that. It's an entry point. Your entry point into Jewish life. It's going to be different for everyone, and it may take time to discover what your personal portal is. But I promise you, once you find it, you'll know. Because when you walk through your portal, it will set your soul aflame and inspire you like you've never been inspired before. And you will come alive with the Spirit of God. It took me a long time to find my portal. In fact, until I was in my mid-20s, I didn't even realize I was looking for it. It was only because of my friendship with an evangelical Christian colleague named Susan, who I worked with in the Senate, that my feet were set upon the path toward discovering my portal and my purpose in Judaism. As your rabbi, my purpose is to help you discover your portal, to be your shepherd, to guide you and connect you with others who share your interests and your values. Others who, like you, are seeking too, so that you can find meaning and purpose in Jewish life. This is what the synagogue community can be for us. It's what the synagogue community needs to be for us. So I want to know you. I want to hear your stories. I want to know what brings you here and what you hope to gain from your involvement in this holy community. So in the coming months, we're going to begin a congregational conversation about these things. We'll meet in small groups in people's homes and have coffee together and share our stories and talk about why we're here and what we hope being part of this temple will add to our lives. Tonight, I invite you to participate in this conversation, and I hope you will. Maybe you'll host a coffee in your home. Maybe you'll come because a friend asks you to. However it is that you choose to participate, I want you to invest yourself in your Jewish life and take ownership of it. I want to take this journey together and discover our portals together and elevate our lives together. I want to know you. I want you to know each other, not superficially, but in a real, meaningful way. And I want all of us to know God and the power of Judaism to transform our lives. Da lifnei mi ata omed. Know before whom you stand. This is my vision of synagogue life in the 21st century. I hope you'll join me in making it a reality. Shabbat Shalom.